The movie starts with two expert snipers from the U.S. Army camp in Ethiopia. Bob Lee Swagger and Donnie successfully complete a mission.
When ready.
But they are suddenly forced to retreat. After detecting the approach of a much larger enemy force, they attempt to neutralize the threat. However, the enemy immediately responds with heavy gunfire.
Fire when ready.
And they quickly report the situation to command headquarters. However, instead of sending reinforcements, the captain orders them to pull back because they are operating illegally within the country. Confident in Donnie and Swagger's exceptional training, he believes they will find a way to survive. Unfortunately, an enemy helicopter spots their position, and Donnie is fatally shot. Devastated by the loss, Swagger fires a powerful shot that brings down the helicopter. 36 months later, Swagger has retired and lives in isolation with only his dog for company.
Come on. What? I got nothing. What?
Meanwhile, in Langley, Virginia, Colonel Isaac Johnson, Michael Sandor, and Jack Payne discuss him as the greatest sniper who ever lived, even though he was abandoned as if he were expendable. A classified report reveals that he was responsible for 70% of the enemy casualties. Strangely, the agents who left him and Donnie behind disappear 2 weeks later, and Swagger retired just 1 week after that.
I guess Bob Lee didn't think he was expendable.
Everything suggests that he was never as expendable as they believed. Eventually, Johnson manages to track him down and formally approaches him with a delicate proposal.
I need you to plan a presidential assassination.
There is intelligence regarding a possible assassination attempt against the president. Over the next 2 weeks, the government could be compromised, meaning they cannot rely on the usual channels for assistance. During that time, the president is scheduled to appear in Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C.
It was internal. We can't go to the usual agencies.
An anonymous intercept claims that the shot would be fired from more than a mile away. He needs Swagger to examine each location and explain how the attack could be carried out in order to prevent it.
President be wearing body armor, that means a headshot at over a mile.
At first, Swagger shows no interest, but Johnson reminds him of the oath he once swore to defend the United States. Even so, Swagger remains firm in his refusal. Before leaving, Johnson makes one final appeal to Swagger's conscience, leaving him deep in thought. Shortly afterward, Swagger catches up to him and discreetly takes a photograph of his vehicle's license plate. Convinced that Swagger has agreed to help, Johnson hands him an envelope.
Someone would be at his number night or day.
The next day, Swagger demonstrates his skill by hitting a can with an extremely long-range shot, proving that such a shot is possible. In the end, he decides to accept the assignment. He gathers his equipment and travels to Washington, D.C., blending in like an ordinary citizen. He inspects the presidential residence and studies the placement of the security cameras. He then travels to Baltimore and finally to Philadelphia, carefully evaluating each scenario with precision. Later, he meets with Johnson and concludes that only Philadelphia presents a realistic opportunity for the attack. The shot would have to be taken from more than 1,000 yards away.
From beyond 1,800 yards, so.
According to Swagger, the shooter would need to wait until the president stepped onto the stage and began delivering his speech. A custom-made large-caliber bullet would be required for the shot. Although Swagger confirms that the shot is technically possible, he warns that even the slightest uncorrected breeze could ruin it.
DC is a pure suicide mission.
The shooter would also need visual reference points between the stage and the firing position. After delivering his report, Swagger prepares to leave, but Johnson asks to speak with him privately. He wants Swagger to act as an observer since he is one of the few people capable of recognizing the signs of a setup.
I could use a spotter.
After a brief pause, Swagger smiles and walks away. On the day of the event in Philadelphia, the president arrives at the venue. Swagger and the team take their assigned positions, carefully watching for any suspicious activity through binoculars.
All clear. There's really nothing going on here.
Swagger scans the area and is introduced to Officer Timmons. When the president steps onto the stage to begin his speech, Swagger studies the movement of the wind. At the same time, a hidden sniper prepares his rifle and takes aim. While continuing to monitor the area, Swagger spots the shooter and immediately orders the team to neutralize him.
Send in the ERT team. Take out the steam.
To his shock, Timmons suddenly turns on him and opens fire. At that exact moment, the president is shot in the head, throwing the crowd into chaos. The entire operation turns out to be a trap. Swagger is attacked again, but he manages to escape by diving through a window and fleeing into the streets.
How could you miss?
Meanwhile, Johnson erupts in anger at Timmons for missing the shot.
Chase him down. He's bleeding. Kill him.
However, he quickly orders the area to be cleared and instructs Timmons to hunt down and eliminate Swagger. As they clean up the scene, they place Swagger's rifle at the location, ensuring that he is framed for the assassination without even realizing it. Unknowingly, Swagger had explained to the real conspirators exactly how to carry out the attack. During his escape, Swagger runs into Nick, an FBI agent whom he manages to overpower and handcuff to a wall.
I didn't shoot the president. Timmons was a setup.
Swagger insists that he was not the one who shot the president and points to Timmons as part of the setup before stealing Nick's car and escaping. Shortly afterward, Timmons arrives, frees Nick, and calls for backup, identifying Swagger as the primary suspect. He provides a description of the vehicle and its direction, causing police patrols and FBI units to immediately redirect their pursuit. Helicopters soon locate Swagger's car and broadcast the license plate number to all units. Thinking quickly, Swagger drives into a car wash, removes his jacket during the process, and tears open the seat to access a hidden compartment. Meanwhile, Johnson is convinced that Swagger will not survive for long, especially since he is wounded. Timmons agrees, certain that they will soon find him dead inside the vehicle. Swagger uses a first aid kit to treat his wounds as best he can before speeding out of the car wash. He is chased by police cruisers and helicopters until he crashes into the back of a truck and becomes surrounded. In a final desperate move, he throws the car into reverse and sends it plunging into the river. The FBI opens fire on the vehicle, but it sinks beneath the water. After confirming that Swagger is not inside, FBI Director Howard orders a search downstream. However, Swagger has already escaped by clinging to the side of a passing barge, bloodied and barely holding on. He eventually reaches a bridge where he hides from both the police patrols and aerial surveillance, before stealing a truck and driving away. Later, at FBI headquarters, news of the assassination spreads across the media, and Swagger is officially identified as the primary suspect. Meanwhile, Timmons is portrayed as the heroic agent who attempted to stop him.
Stanley Timmons, first to respond to the scene, is believed to have shot and injured Swagger.
Director Howard reprimands Nick for being overpowered. Although Nick considers himself lucky to still be alive, he shares what Swagger told him. However, Agent Lewis dismisses the story, assuming Nick's confusion is simply the result of stress. That same night, Swagger arrives at a supermarket and watches news reports showing footage that links him to the reconnaissance of the locations before the assassination attempt. Unable to enter while showing his face, he cuts the power from behind the building and approaches the store clerk during the blackout. Although she is hesitant at first because of the outage, she eventually agrees to help him and gathers the supplies he needs. Afterward, Swagger removes a hose from the car's engine and heads into the restroom where he begins treating his wounds. Meanwhile, Nick receives a tip from the store clerk and passes it along to Lewis. But Lewis once again ignores the information.
He's gonna put you on psych leave. Go back to your desk.
With his face camouflaged in paint, Swagger gets back on the road, becoming increasingly distrustful of everyone around him. Nick repeatedly reviews the footage of the assassination and carefully analyzes all the available evidence. The following morning, Swagger arrives in Kentucky at the home of Sarah, Donnie's widow. She recognizes him immediately. Swagger assures her that he was not the shooter, something she already believes because the real victim turned out to be the Ethiopian archbishop. Although Swagger does not fully understand the motive behind everything that happened, he sets those questions aside and desperately asks for her help.
Please.
Look, you should go.
Please.
Sarah is reluctant and tries to force him to leave, but Swagger stops her from closing the door and swears that he is innocent. When he notices that she is hiding a shotgun, he tells her she can use it if she truly wants to because he has nowhere else to go. After a long tense pause, Sarah agrees to help him and tells him to pull the truck into the garage before the neighbors wake up. Once inside the house, Sarah starts dialing 911 but cannot bring herself to report Swagger. When the emergency operator calls back just as Swagger walks into the house, she cancels the report and blames the call on a neighbor's dog.
Yeah, neighbor's dog knocked over the trash cans and scared the hell.
Seeing how badly injured he is, Sarah doubts she is capable of helping him since she is not a nurse. However, Swagger calmly guides her step by step through everything he needs. He gives her a list of medical supplies and warns her to buy them from different stores to avoid attracting attention. Back at FBI headquarters, Agent Lords is surprised to see Nick there so early and realizes he never actually went home. Nick confesses that everyone treats him as if he is crazy and shares his suspicions with her, reminding her about a long-range shot Swagger made during a competition 2 years earlier. As he reviews the assassination footage once again, Nick cannot understand how someone with Swagger's skill and experience could miss the president and instead hit the archbishop, especially considering the wind conditions and the extreme distance. To him, none of it makes sense. Lord suggests that he let the matter go and get some rest. But Nick refuses to give up. He points out an error in Timmons's report, explaining that a real sniper would have positioned himself in the center of the room rather than near the window, contrary to what the official report claims. When Nick asks to speak with Timmons, Lords shows him a news report. Apparently, Timmons was killed the previous night by a supposed mugger. Nick suspects that someone is simply tying up loose ends, though part of him still struggles to believe it. Meanwhile, Swagger instructs Sarah on how to continue helping with his treatment. Once she returns with the supplies, she visibly hesitates at the severity of what she has to do, but she manages to carry it out while Swagger remains unconscious. At the same time, Nick visits the scene of the shooting, trying to piece together what really happened. Meanwhile, Sarah disposes of the blood-stained medical supplies. Swagger is haunted by nightmares about the trap that was set for him inside the chapel. At the same time, Nick slips into a hidden area and examines the floor using a measuring tape. He discovers a tiny, perfectly precise hole and attempts to investigate further, but the ringing of a bell interrupts him. Meanwhile, an increasingly uneasy Johnson orders his team to thoroughly investigate every detail of Swagger's life. When Swagger wakes up, he finds Sarah sitting beside him. She delivers devastating news. His dog has been killed, and the authorities are claiming that Swagger himself shot the animal. Convinced that Swagger would never return for the dog, they saw it as a loose end. Swagger is devastated, having raised the dog since it was a puppy. Sarah asks him what he plans to do next, and Swagger swears that he will recover and take revenge. Meanwhile, sitting at his desk, Nick logs onto an international firearms forum and asks about a system that uses a tripod with a very specific spacing between its legs. While waiting for a response, Nick notices a suspicious man nearby talking on the phone, but his attention shifts when a link appears containing a video that demonstrates the exact tripod system in action. Later, at Sarah's house, she changes Swagger's bandages. During the conversation, he asks whether she is seeing anyone, and she quietly answers no. The atmosphere immediately becomes tense, prompting Sarah to step away to ease the awkwardness. Swagger thanks her for saving his life. She warns him that they will never stop hunting him, but he replies that he plans to give them someone else to chase. As Swagger packs his things, Sarah enters the room carrying Donnie's old shotgun, freshly cleaned and oiled. She hands it to him and, curious, asks why he accepted the assignment when it was offered to him. Swagger admits that they pushed all the right buttons and that his patriotism would not allow him to stand aside. Swagger then asks Sarah for help with a plan, and she agrees without hesitation. Overcome with guilt, Swagger confesses that Donnie's death was his fault because he never should have dragged him into that life. Hurt by his words, Sarah slaps him and reminds him that Donnie loved what he did and fully understood the risks. It was never a burden Swagger was meant to carry alone. Swagger accepts her words, apologizes, and the two share an emotional embrace. The next morning, Sarah drives out to meet the FBI agent Swagger mentioned. She gives him the vehicle identification number, revealing that the agent is Nick. The goal is to use the information to Lord Johnson by passing the number along to him. The exchange happens quickly. Sarah is disguised and speaks with a fake accent. From a distance, Swagger watches with relief as she safely drives away, and then he notices Nick leaving as well. Suddenly, 2 police officers approach Swagger and ask for identification. When one of them tries to remove his cap, Swagger throws hot coffee in the officer's face. Swagger manages to escape after struggling with the officers. He abandons his jacket and disappears into the city wearing a hooded sweatshirt. Back at the FBI, Nick sneaks into a private office and searches for the vehicle number. Later, he questions Lourdes, who cautiously admits that CNN may have received an edited version of the assassination footage before the FBI did. Nick asks who provided it. She explains that it came from an anonymous agency that denied any involvement, which in itself is practically a confirmation. Lourdes hesitates to reveal anything further and warns Nick that he could face serious charges. However, after persistent pressure from him, she finally confesses that the ASAC position requires Delta authorization clearance. Meanwhile, Johnson is alerted to the activity on the firearms forum and notices a request for Delta authorization coming from an FBI office. As he begins connecting the pieces, he realizes someone inside the bureau is getting dangerously close to the truth. Nick realizes that Swagger was the last person to have contact with the missing man before he disappeared while walking across a bridge. Nick calls Aldez and tells him about a suspicious company with military connections but no official ties to the government. Before he can process the information, he is ambushed and kidnapped, leaving his phone behind. Later, he is tortured and drugged while the men stage everything to make it look like he was responsible for what happened. However, the situation takes an unexpected turn when Swagger kills the 3 attackers one by one and frees Nick. Nick becomes furious after realizing he was used as bait, but Swagger believes it was the only way to force them to reveal themselves. He advises Nick to find a good lawyer while he tries to get the Bureau to make a deal that could prove his innocence. But Swagger is not interested. After all, they killed his dog. Nick warns him that he cannot win a war against them. Swagger explains that the law will never catch them or keep them behind bars. In a few years, they will return to business as usual while he will have disappeared forever, and the killings will continue. Even though he did not start the conflict, he intends to finish it. Realizing he has nowhere else to go, Nick decides to help him. Meanwhile, Johnson, Michael, and Jack receive reports confirming that Swagger is still alive. They also learn about Sarah and discover her location. So Johnson orders Jack to visit her in Athens, Tennessee. Nick and Swagger meet with an elderly man known as the best gunsmith around. Swagger asks him whether it is possible to fire a bullet from one rifle and make it perfectly match another weapon. The old man sits him down and begins explaining the method. He asks Nick to take a book from the shelf and then reads his palm, making Nick uncomfortable. As Nick opens the book to a specific page, the gunsmith explains how paper-patched bullets work. Swagger asks whether he knows anyone capable of making such a long-distance shot. The old man says he once heard about a shooter named Bob Lee Swagger, although he never met him, and makes it clear that he does not believe such a shot is possible. He adds that whoever managed to pull it off is probably already dead because that is how conspiracies work. When Swagger asks if there is anyone else, the gunsmith talks about a man who retired from the world of shooting, a ruthless assassin who was once hunted down. He was eventually located inside an abandoned building, and an artillery strike reduced the place to rubble. Some people say he managed to crawl out alive, while others believe he died there. Either way, no one ever heard from him again. As Swagger remembers a moment from the past, he realizes the man the gunsmith was talking about is Michael, who is now confined to a wheelchair. The gunsmith then takes Swagger's hand and begins reading his palm. The old man warns Swagger that things are not always what they seem. Swagger asks him for a name. Later, Nick calls Lotus and asks him to investigate someone named Kalo Sherrick. At the same time, Johnson tells Michael that Swagger will most likely try to track down the shooter, and that he plans to use a decoy to lure him out. When Michael asks what will happen to the decoy afterward, Johnson avoids answering. The investigation reveals that Kalo Sherrick is actually Michael, and Lotus informs Nick that he is currently in Virginia. That night, Johnson meets with Senator Charles to request authorization for a transport plane to land without going through customs inspections. The aircraft is carrying 24 men, weapons, and equipment from the Ethiopia operation. The senator orders Johnson to make sure no loose ends are left behind back home. Meanwhile, Sarah hears a noise and fires at a man trying to ambush her. However, another man appears behind her, disarms her, and demands to know where Swagger is. Meanwhile, Nick and Swagger arrive in Virginia. After inspecting the area, Swagger realizes it is a trap. The following morning, they visit a hardware store and separately purchase supplies. They then build weapons and prepare their equipment. Swagger also teaches Nick how to shoot. Back at Sarah's house, Jack brutally beats her and leaves her half-naked in an attempt to force information out of her. Nick and Swagger infiltrate the perimeter. Nick acts as the spotter while Swagger plants explosives and silently eliminates the security guards with precision. Swagger eventually enters the house and confronts Michael, demanding to know Johnson's real name, who he works for, and why the Archbishop had to be eliminated. Michael explains that Johnson has used many different names throughout his military career. He recruits wounded men for a single mission and then discards them just as they try to do with Swagger. Michael reveals that the Archbishop was killed because he planned to expose what truly happened in Africa. He explains that nothing happens without government approval. Prisoners are tortured in Abu Ghraib, while only low-ranking soldiers end up taking the blame. Entire villages were massacred so the land could later be exploited for profit. As armed men begin surrounding the building, Michael reveals that there is a mass grave beneath a pumping station near the Ethiopian border. Swagger realizes that, without knowing it, he had actually covered the retreat of the contractors responsible during his mission with Donnie, and that he was never meant to survive. Michael confesses that the senator is the one backing Johnson, and describes the system as something designed to protect itself. Anyone who betrays it is destroyed by the others. He then warns Swagger that the armed men are closing in. Finally, Michael admits that he only kept Swagger occupied long enough to tell him the truth before taking his own life. Michael reveals that there are enemy forces nearby as Nick reports their positions over the radio. Swagger prepares for the attack and orders Nick to move to the secondary hiding point. Swagger kills a sniper who enters the house and tells Nick to detonate the explosives on his signal. Nick follows the order and the explosions erupt as the gunmen open fire. Swagger moves from one position to another while exchanging shots and triggering additional explosions. Several attackers are taken down, allowing Swagger to regroup with Nick. A helicopter suddenly approaches, triggering painful memories of Donnie's death in Swagger's mind. He immediately opens fire and orders Nick to head toward the barn. Swagger covers his retreat before joining him at the exact moment. Nick runs toward the tree line while Swagger continues firing at the helicopter. One of the shots causes the aircraft to explode in flames before crashing, giving Swagger enough time to catch up with Nick. The two men successfully escape. Meanwhile, Howard is informed about Nick's involvement in the shootout, leaving him stunned. Senator Charles is furious over what happened in Montana. Nick later contacts the FBI to report Swagger's location, and Howard answers the call while other agents begin tracing it. Howard orders Nick to hand Swagger over, but Nick no longer knows who he can trust and hangs up. Shortly afterward, the team moves toward the area. Nick then receives a call from Johnson, who talks about Sarah. In response, Swagger plays Michael's recorded confession and offers to exchange it for Sarah, demanding the presence of Senator Charles. Johnson initially refuses, but Swagger gives him two numbers corresponding to the final digits of the longitude and latitude of the pipeline location. They eventually agree to meet on top of a snowy mountain. Jack, Sarah, Johnson, and Senator Charles arrive by helicopter. Jack keeps Sarah hostage while a second helicopter lands farther away. Someone steps out and, believing the person is Swagger, the sniper opens fire. Sarah is devastated while the senator and Johnson celebrate, convinced Swagger is dead. However, their celebration is short-lived when another shot kills the sniper, and the supposedly dead man suddenly stands up. A second sniper attempts to finish him off, but Swagger kills both the sniper and his spotter. The man who was shot turns out to be Nick. Jack panics and points his weapon at Sarah, but Swagger shoots off his fingers before blowing off his hand and leaving him mortally wounded. Meanwhile, Howard receives an envelope and immediately mobilizes his team after seeing Swagger's name connected to the evidence. Swagger orders Nick to search Johnson and the senator. During the confrontation, Sarah grabs a gun and unleashes her fury on Jack, killing him. Swagger gently takes the weapon from her hands and makes sure she is okay. Nick restrains the pilot while Johnson demands that Swagger honor his side of the deal. The senator even offers Swagger a job, but Swagger confronts him over authorizing the massacre of an entire village. However, Senator Charles insists that the pipeline brought stability to the region. The FBI arrives and Swagger destroys the phone containing Michael's recording. Nick is shocked because the evidence could have proven Swagger's innocence. However, Swagger argues that nobody is truly innocent, and that in official hands, the evidence would simply disappear anyway. The senator leaves by helicopter while Johnson smugly claims that Swagger's rifle is now in FBI custody, declaring himself the winner. Shortly afterward, the FBI surrounds the area and Swagger is arrested. At the Department of Justice in Washington, Swagger is brought before Attorney General Russert and several other officials. During a handshake, Nick secretly passes Swagger something. Russert allows Swagger to speak in order to prove his innocence. Swagger loads his rifle and points it first at Nick and then at Johnson, causing panic throughout the room. However, the rifle never fires. Swagger demonstrates that the weapon could not have been used in the assassination attempt because he had disabled all of his rifles before the inspection. Johnson believes Swagger has nothing left against him and prepares to leave. But Nick suddenly presents photographs from Africa that directly connect Johnson to the operation. Russert explains that Africa falls outside their jurisdiction, meaning they cannot arrest him. Johnson walks away triumphantly while Russert releases Swagger, admitting there is nothing they can do against the system designed to protect itself. Later, at Senator Charles's house, he and Johnson mock everything that happened. But their confidence quickly turns into terror when a body suddenly crashes through the ceiling. Johnson moves closer to investigate and is instantly shot dead. Terrified, the senator and another agent crawl across the floor, while the cars outside explode one after another. Moments later, Swagger enters the house and kills the remaining men before turning on the gas. As Swagger walks away, the mansion is already engulfed in flames. He then approaches a car where Sarah is waiting for him, and the two drive away together, proving that Swagger kept his promise until the very end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next movie recap. See you in the next one.